Desde atrás hace lo mismo Shai, y encima la del contrario. Shai consigue la baja. ¡Se lanza directo! Ya logra la labor, pero todo queda en manos de Melzer. Melzer, el guardián, nos queda el bolsillo. Tiene el número 3. ¡Claro que tenemos! ¡Vamos, Melzer!
Welcome back to VCT Americas Week 6 and our second match of this gorgeous Sunday. It's a LATAM showdown. It's going to be Leviatán facing off against KRU. Of course, I'm Golden Boy here, once again joined by the aptly named Eminem. Did enjoy that one, Vansili. Well done, my friend. But, of course, to help set the stage for this matchup, let's actually send it over to our friends on the LATAM broadcast team. Here's RKT and Suga.
Well, thanks guys for having us here. Today is Leviatán versus KRU, our classic in Latin America. And KRU has always been known for what they did back in Champions 2021. They made to semifinals, and in that moment, every Latin American team wanted to beat KRU.
Yeah, a lot of changes in both rosters actually. Not only Onur, also Betoni joined Leviatán in the past year, and we have the changes in players too. Kesnit was a player from KRU, but at the end of 2022, they joined Leviatán, but they joined again to KRU for this year. Melzer joins to KRU, and now it's a IGL for the team. And finally, Massino, one of the key pieces from KRU, go to Leviatán.
Also, it's been like 10 months since last time they have faced each other's off, and today they're playing against their old team for the first time. So it's been like many changes nowadays, because Leviatán was known also for being this super aggro team that really liked to do that kind of anti-tempo strat with King, with the Raze, and also with the Neon. But now things have changed a lot since Onur is here in Leviatán. So this could be a really interesting matchup, because now Leviatán seems so much stronger, and also KRU feels like more flexible, and also they are like so super comfortable taking risks, and that could be a really hard scenario for Leviatán. Back to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Suga, for that, as well as RKT. Always great to have that insight there. And let's talk about what they spoke about, Mimi, because there is a history between these teams. We were even seeing it a lock-in as we saw some players changing sides.
This is the de facto matchup of LATAM for basically the last 2 years between these teams. And as they were talking about, it was KRU initially who was the team on top, always the gatekeeper, keeping Leviatán in second place. But towards the end of last year, Leviatán overtook them, making it to champions, making the run there that impressed so many people. And that story has continued into this year, where Leviatán had sky-high expectations into the league, and KRU has not yet been able to live up to that massive height they once had at Champions 2021.
And there's a rich history between these teams for sure, and I think both teams have had good international wins and success, so it's pretty even grounds, but you're right, KRU has a lot to prove here, especially early on in the season. Leviatán has been proving to be the LATAM team. They're the it girl. They've been. So it's really on KRU now to kind of overtake her.
It's true, and I think that it's also important to note here that even though, Suga was saying, like, yeah, you're seeing a stronger Leviatán, but it has been a bit of a bumpy ride here in VCT Americas for them, Mimi, because we came out of lock-in thinking this team is going to pound, and then they show up and there is no pounding.
I mean, there was
slight pounding.
And then, there was that.
Let's not use that word on broadcast again.
Moving on, the thing is that in the last few weeks, I feel like we've seen Leviatán starting to slump a bit. This EG game, for example, was the biggest example where they lost to this team in fashion that was really unlike them. It started to look like they were going to be able to play their game plan and do well, and then things started falling apart, and they never really recovered. So many individual mistakes. The structure that we normally expect from the squad was falling apart, and it's so interesting because it parallels that run at lock-in where they looked like they were going to be a team to win it all and just whimpered out against Na'Vi.
It's always that, like, oh, we have the potential and you just want to get over that cusp, and then you realize it, but it's when everyone else's skill ceilings and their skill floors are rising, you need to keep up. You got to keep that upward trajectory. You can't just stay stagnant, and this is going to be a huge proving ground here for Leviatán to show.
Yeah, you're really hoping to see the Leviatán that we all knew we were going to get out of lock, and the Leviatán that we got that 2-0'd NRG, you know, like that team, if that team shows up today, goodness gracious, they are one of the scariest teams. Like an IGL fragger like King, who has all the confidence in the world, Mimi, it is horrifying to play against him, I can only imagine.
It's really hard to play against, but KRU have been looking way better. And the thing is, if Leviatán lose this one, their chance of even making playoffs is at risk because they play Cloud9 and Loud, the top two teams in the league next. If they don't win here, they go into those games 3-4. It could all be over. This is really a must-win this week.
And I'm sure Leviatán, the players, the staff are all fully aware of that. And what really I'm looking to here is how much we've talked about their protocols and how heavy they are and how maybe they're apt to get prepped on. But what I'm looking for here is for them to kind of reinvent themselves. I want to see some new reactions out of them on different maps. When this mid-default happens, let's do this instead. Let's have a more thorough playbook on what to do. And let's throw a different look at them. Because KRU, I mean, not only are they former teammates, but there's a lot of prep there.
Yeah, you know, you want new ideas, and obviously those new ideas have to start from the top, and that is, you know, from the staff, from the coaching. And look, no one is more disappointed than Coach Onur, by the way. Here's actually a tweet, and we decided to put this really sick music behind it. Reasons? Don't know, but I'm gonna read it for you. Have to respect all the opinions, the ones you like and the ones you don't. About us, we are sportsmen, and we have to learn to get along with the critics. The last one is justified by our latest performance that was under our own and others' expectations. At one point in this process, we got lost on the road that brought us here, but we are still on time to get it back. I am confident of the players and the teamwork. All that is left for us to redouble the hours until the Levianeta starts to work once more. Salute, Coach Onur. Salute to you, my friend, for everything that you do. And I wish it caught us saluting here instead of cutting to Onur, but it all works out anyway. Whatever, maybe we'll catch it on B-roll. Salute!
Thank you, Coach Onur. I mean, it really was below expectation that we've come to expect from this Leviatán squad. And
what
it does have to go back to... I'm trying to compose myself again. I've lost.
I want to say this. Something that I've picked up on, and I've mentioned it a few weeks, and you could talk about this as a pro player, is fatigue, right? This is a long, long season. And it's even worse for the players because they take a loss, and then they got to get back to work. How is that for you as a player, having to deal with that? Like when you take the loss and you know you just want a day, does it feel like sometimes you're playing for a day off or you're playing to get a dub, you know?
For sure. I think there's a lot of attention to detail from staff and management to help, you know, offset some of the stress of you got to play every day. And even if we look unrelated, it's other teams where let's say their other maps are weak, right? But a new map just came out. Now you got to get good at that map because your old permaban, you can't just unlift that permaban. You have to play the new map unless you want to unlift your permaban and relearn that new map anyway. So it feels like you might be kind of always behind. And so you have to kind of like the quote said, you actually unironically have to redouble your hours and just play twice as much if you want to feel like you're not stagnating, like you're ahead of the curve, like you're ahead of the next team. Because at the end of the day, all you can control is what you do. You can't just hope for a miracle. The other team's going to play bad.
And we know Leviatán puts in that effort, but every other team in Americas does too. And KRU is such a good example of that. Their improvement throughout Americas, even though they're still winless, has been incredible. You cannot go into any game just expecting to win.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at some of the matchups that we have here heading into today. Firstly, we'll talk about Kesnet as well as Mazzino, right? We'll talk about these guys here because Kesnet kind of, in a very similar vein that we were talking about with like Austin or Crow, you're looking for him to be the tip of the spear, and you're really hoping to see that Kesnet come out and frag like he can today.
When Kesnet is on his peak, he can make this crew look incredible. But the reason I wanted to talk about this matchup is because of the history here. When you thought about KRU for so long on this team, you thought of a duo. They go into an international event. Kesnet and Mazzino are gonna be the two stars, playing that main dive and either that second duelist or flash initiator to help them out. These were the guys that pushed the squad over the line, that got them into the top 4 at Champions 2021. And now, for the first time in almost a year, or actually for the first time, I believe, they're going to be playing up against each other.
It's pretty cool.
And it's interesting because Kesnet has stayed so similar, being that primary duelist, but Mazzino has made a complete role swap. He looks like a different player than he was then.
And role swapping can always be kind of a fun thing as well, like picking up a new role, and you can kind of get a better feel and kind of understanding of the game. So that's interesting to see from Zeno. And I think they're going to have a lot of depending on Kesnet from KRU. I think a big strength from KRU is less their strategy. Not to say that they don't have strats, but they have a simple game plan. But when you have simple game plans, you need to be very strong tactically, and that's when you're really leaning on your duelist and your initiator players to get in there and exit the site perfectly.
Yeah, great insight there, and also interesting history buff there. Nice to know that that is big history fan here. Speaking of history, that's a transition. For more on this one, let's actually hear from Zeno as well as KRU's Melzer going into this match.
Jugué en KRU por 2 años. Es la primera vez que me enfrento a KRU después de salir.
Bueno, Leviatán era mi anterior equipo, así que obviamente estoy feliz de jugar con ellos. Primero estaba KRU, que siempre nos ganaba, después logramos ganar. Entonces siempre éramos como los dos que siempre estuvimos clasificando y peleando las finales en LATAM. Así que hay mucha rivalidad. Lo que veo es que siguen teniendo el mismo estilo que estaban planteando anteriormente. Respetan mucho su estructura, es un juego lento, un juego donde todo está muy esquematizado, así que tienen una fácil lectura.
Yo creo que la gente que dice que KRU realmente es un equipo malo, está equivocado, o sea, no ha visto los partidos. Pues. Se sabe que obviamente tienen como un partido peleado, muy peleado, y el otro como que no les va muy bien. Pero estamos en una liga que cualquier equipo que uno tenga frente va a ser un equipo fuerte y uno tiene que dar lo mejor.
Es un juego muy divertido, un juego picante. Ya nos conocemos, así que no espero nada, ni tengo nervios, ni nada de ellos. Nos conozco hace mucho tiempo, así que solamente diversión y que gane el mejor.
Lots said there, but let's go ahead and move on to KRU. And, you know, I really don't like to make these kind of statements, right? But KRU needs a miracle, all right? If they want to consider playoffs, and it's a shame because last week this team almost beat Loud, and I'm not saying that they can't do it. I actually think right now they're in a better position than they were at the beginning of the season. But Mimi, it's very apparent though that like their destiny is not in their control with how their record is played out.
Yeah, technically they can still make it, but it's something like a 1% chance of qualifying. They have to win out with a good round differential, with winning all the matches over the teams they need to, and then it's still out of their control. KRU's season is almost over, and at this point, they're just, I think, playing to get some wins on the board to prove to us that the close matches they've been playing is what this team is. They can actually close out.
Yeah, because this is not a team that should be 0-6, right? I mean, this is a good squad. We've seen them have success before. What do you think is the kind of been causing the problems for them from your perspective?
I think their record is not really completely, what's the word?
Fraudulent?
It's a little fraudulent. It's not completely genuine and reflects exactly the story here. Like, if you look at the round differential, like you said, these games are close. Considering they're an 0-6 team, these rounds and these games, these matches are close. I mean, last week we just saw them almost beat Loud. They had a closer series versus Loud than 100 Thieves just did. Like, I think that needs to be definitely taken into consideration. And I think as well, one of the players in Leviathan, I just mentioned in the interview that if you think KRU is a bad team right now, you're just not watching the games because these games are close. Like, they are on the cusp here.
You can never underrate this squad. So close versus Loud, and so close really in every single one of these matchups. It's so rare that they're getting stomped, even though they have that brutal record. And I think last week versus Loud is the best that they had ever looked. They made this substitution to bring Achilles in, and the game plan was working well. All of their players were popping off. Achilles was playing super technical roles and slotted into them perfectly. It's just been a slow improvement week by week, and they almost beat Loud, but it's just tragic that it wasn't enough.
And for me, it's like being able to have that player to just slot in is so much harder to do than just to say. Like, I'm sorry, to do. Make sure. It is easy to say, but it's really hard to do because the roles that he's playing require him to be very high on comms, very heavy in the communication. And when I talk about a team that is as technically as strong, and that's their strength as KRU, you really need to have that player there as a bright spot for your team.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned Achilles because coming in, substitution, last second, has to go up against Loud, as you had mentioned, Mimi, and does so in a manner where it's quite impressive. You're like, damn, where's this kid been this whole time? And you're excited for them because now it's breathing new life into Crew.
Yeah, he was really good individually on the first two maps, but what stuck with me was the roles he was playing. Harbor, I think, is the hardest role within a team on Pro. You have to have your util timings right. It's kind of technical just within the agent to get the walls to hit perfectly. And then he played KO on the second map, which I think is probably the hardest role to play on Ascent, because it's all about coordination, knowing the lineups, knowing the flashes, and doing that perfectly with your duelist player. And he did so well in both those roles.
I think if they really want to pull out this win here, it's going to be heavy looks towards Achilles and Kesnet and how this duo synergizes in the server. If they're not going to be able to get this tactical prowess, if they're not going to be able to be like, hey, I want to use this util, he's going to be here. Because sometimes you'll see Crew hit a site with 3 people and they'll come out on top because they have a great dog pathing or a great flash. And that's what I mean when I say these tactics, because it might look like a site stack, but with Crew's firepower, if they can just get that synergy, it's going to be a dub.
Yeah, and that is what you are hoping for. You need that synergy, and it's wild that they've been able to find that success without Davies, who unfortunately had to sit out last week due to an injury. And actually, here's what he had to say about it. 1-2 versus Loud. You learn a lot by watching a game from the outside and knowing the maps were lost due to small details like in the other series. Hopefully, I can be well for the next games. GG's, and continue to improve for the remainder of the league. Obviously, we hope nothing but the best for Davies' recovery. Awesome player, awesome person. Hope that he's back on stage very soon. But that leads us, Mimi, to that point that he had made. The small details. Crew are going to have to clean it up against LEV.
It's exactly what we were talking about with 100 Thieves earlier. They have solid game plans, but it's these little mistakes that continue to snowball these games away from Crew.
At the highest level, you can't make these small mistakes. They have to be improved on. They have to be ironed out. And so we're going to be looking at both of these teams to really clean up on that in this regard.
Yeah, it is going to be a very fascinating matchup. We're all excited about this one. And let's go ahead and close out this Sunday in style. You know, we have 2 fantastic teams. We have Latin America's finest squads taking the stage. Please welcome Leviatán as well as Crew. It's a collision course with 2 of the finest Latin American teams the region has to offer. Leviatán goes up against Crew Esports to determine who is the best of their respective region. Let's do this as we get ready to see how this matchup is going to play out, Memes.
So much has changed since the last time these 2 teams faced off against each other. It was 11 months ago, and it was always Crew who was dominant, 4-2 in the record against Leviatán. But that final match, just under a year ago, was where Leviatán overtook, won the finals, went to Copenhagen, impressed people there. Ever since, they have been the top dog in LATAM, and Crew, maybe they have a chance to prove that they are still up there.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because, correct me if I'm wrong, I could be just a complete fraud here, but wasn't Onur on Crew at one point? Or was that?
Champions 2021.
And
he was trying to help them make that run.
And then he flipped over to LEV. And then everyone was like, can Coach Onur do it again?
He did it again.
Kind of did it again. So you're kind of seeing a bit of a trend here, but also at the same time, it just goes to show the depth of talent that's available in that region, Mel.
It really does, and there's so much that factors into this. There's past teammates, there's grudge matches, they play each other so many times. We talk small details. When you're playing against your old teammates or you're playing against people you've played over and over, there's things that you know that no one else knows. Like, yo, I know that this guy, he likes to do this at this timing. Yo, he likes to do this flash. Or it's like, I know he's gonna over-rotate off of this information. All these small details that I can't even hit on because there's just so many things that only they know. It's going to be just incredible to watch.
Yeah.
I'm sure there is an emotional aspect to this as well.
Sure.
You've played against these guys, you've played with these guys, you've played in ranked with them. There is so much history, and winning here for either of these teams would mean a lot, especially since both those playoff hopes very much on the line.
Yeah, this is a big game for a lot of reasons. Not only the pride, but also for the success down the line to get into playoffs here. But we'll see the first few bans starting to come through as Fracture as well as Lotus are going to go. And Haven will be the first battleground for these three teams, Mel. Excited to see some Haven in play.
I love seeing Haven. I like seeing King Call on Haven as well. I just love Haven as a map and how callers approach it, especially with a team that's also as tactically strong as KRU. Haven's a great map for that because sometimes the engagements are not good. You're going to go into a stack, the defense has those rotates, and you got to win out the fights.
Second map will be split. For the first time in a while, we're not going to see KRU pick into Ascent, which I like. They've loved that map, but it's also a big strong point for Leviatán. So they actually want to stay away from that one, instead trying something a little bit new in the split. For the final map, though, we will land on Pearl, which I'm very worried about KRU if we get to this point, because right now, Leviatán 7-0. They look like the best Pearl team in the league.
Fair to KRU, though, they did pull off that Pearl W versus Loud last week, barely 13-10. But this is going to be a great
That could be, you know, the textbook, right? That could be the blueprint for how to do it. KRU have proven that they can be successful on that map. I actually kind of feel pretty good about KRU in this series.
It's really possible. You cannot underrate KRU in this matchup. But let's talk about map number one, which is Haven. Both these teams in history have ran pretty much the same comp, where it's the Breach, Sova, Jet. Pretty much the standard here. And I wouldn't expect anything to change. Probably just a Shetty locking in the Breach, which he will. That's a 1-for-1 replacement.
Everything's looking pretty standard so far, and I don't predict, with the rest of these agent picks, there should be nothing catching us off guard here. It's just going to be Haven, plain and simple.
On this defensive side, I want everyone to watch out for Kesnet, because he loves walk pushing these extremities, especially in the mid rounds. He got punished for it against NRG, but when he's allowed to get loose, when you don't punish him taking that space, he can take over games.
All right, well, in pro wrestling, we call this a good old-fashioned blood feud. Two Latin American teams looking to prove their prowess. Let's go ahead and send it over to your casters. Two guys who prove their prowess every time in premier lobbies. It's Doug and Bala.
We lost again.
Man.
You just ignore the loss, and then GB's not wrong.
Yeah,
right?
no, I didn't lose. It wasn't my fault.
We've got a banger of a match up for grabs. I think Leviatán trying to find their footing once again, as they've seemed to look human in a couple of instances, what you wouldn't expect, while KRU still fighting for their very first win of the season.
Yeah, and because of that context, it feels like what should be a classic match definitely loses a bit of its luster, but obviously KRU with the potential for still miracles. Their fate is out of their hands, but if they do want a little shot at this, it's a must-win scenario for them. And LEV, obviously they've stumbled in the later half of this season. 2 losses in a row now, 2 major upsets, I would say, in a row. See if they can find their footing here in a rivalry match that is sure to be a classic in the years to come.
It's aggressive and it's pacey out from Leviatán to start off this round. They're already out on the C. It's because there's a 3-man flank, a 4-man flank, excuse me, coming in from KRU towards A.
Yeah, aggressive in KRU's
I mean, they're
side as well.
Yeah, they're going to hear.
These shocks are going to do damage too. Already got a setup here, but now Nelsworth left by himself, and
Nice shock dart.
he'll still make it work, even though Melzer with a great paranoia. Phenomenal start.
Yeah, his positioning there was gorgeous. He was able to drop shock dart, right, create damage with his utility, still put himself in a position that he could trade out all his kills, ISO the 1v1s and get the round. Great start for Nelsworth.
Conversion on the pistol too. And Mimi was talking about how Kesnet likes to go aggressive. That is a flavor right there that you might not see all the time, but also speaks to potentially trying to play towards strengths of the players on the KRU side. And already potentially goes to the meta game between these two teams. Mel was speaking to how much these two teams know each other, the little things that they like to do. Because of the experience that you have. Melzer used to play for Leviatán. He used to IGL for the players on Leviatán. Cover going out. Mazzino used to play for KRU. There's so many of these little battles going on in this game. Probably the most we've had in the league.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. There's just so much history, right? It's just chock full of stuff like that. So not just a match between two teams, but in a lot of ways, a match between previous friends, now foes. And it's another excellent round for Leviatán. That Bulldog is put in work.
Love the commitment too. knowing he's going to get stunned, knowing he'll eventually be traded down. But somehow, some way, KRU have gotten 2 kills on this. Achilles most likely not going to get another. Taco heard where he actually tucked there, so that's where the aftershock comes through. And it's a fairly clean conversion there.
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, I want to go back to something that Dedes was talking about earlier, and it really does revolve around Achilles, because he looked like a breath of fresh air for KRU last time we saw them play. And yeah, ultimately they didn't win, but he was playing aggressively, he was playing with confidence. In some instances, he was top fragging for his team, so it really does feel like he's been a bit of a spark. I think the question is here, is it enough of a spark? And not to mention, is it going to be enough to carry over week?
Yeah. And I also have to point out, too, this is this 4th agent that he's played in 4 maps for this team as a sub. So you see the importance they put on him, and you see how he's not shying away from these fights, and Kesnet as well just gets destroyed by Mazzino Sheriff. Happy to see Mazzino taking that fight, by the way, the only player, except for Noswer as well, who has a lighter weapon there. So taking the fight, it's fine if he goes down. Obviously, he has the smokes for the team, but it's less likely that they'll lose a gun in exchange too.
Still early in a round, but worth mentioning here too. Leviatán, they don't normally win these bonus rounds. For them to be up in numbers right here is very considerable, but still a little under a minute left in the round. You've got Melser, who's cut off any sort of info and any rotation towards C. Seems like the hit's gonna end A. Achilles in trouble. Taco's able to get ahead of the utility that's intended to delay.
That's beautiful. And even the follow-up dash 2 after getting 2 kills breaks the angles even worse. So Achilles guaranteed to go down there. And you have to commend as well the execution there from Leviatán. With the man advantage, they continue with the straight up. And Taco dashes into a smoke, waits for the dart before committing forward. He's able to get 2 kills off of a recon. Just beautiful. Chasing the gun too. You mentioned converting the bonus here. The other thing is getting that first pick is so important for Leviatán. They're so good in these 5v4 situations, best in the league. And I think that speaks to the structure and the discipline that this team displays when you watch them. They're able to regroup, refocus, play so tight and disciplined in those situations.
A great start for Leviatán. They're going to have money for a really long time here. It's also worth mentioning 3 members have actual rifles. It's just 1 Bulldog,
yeah.
Other than the Phantoms and the Vandals. So again, this isn't like they made their way through with some Stingers and some Spectres and then the occasional Bulldog smattered in. They are sitting very comfortable right now.
Yeah, it's definitely something that's becoming more and more popular, is ensuring you have rifles for that bonus to have a good chance. Last year it was about a 18 to 20% win rate overall for bonuses. It's definitely on the uptick with this, not only the light armor, but buying rifles up as much as possible. Dart play here again. Aftershock 2, great set play from KRU right now. They get 2 kills, and this is off saved weapons.
And this is really the only Phantom, and it's putting in work. It's already gotten 3 on the round. But Nosver's left in this 1v3. Remember the excellent start he had to the map in this pistol. Once again finds himself in a number situation that is far from favorable.
Those are faking the steps around too. That actually baits them to push, but they're peeking. Oh, it almost felt like one by one there, but yeah. That's a disgusting little trap there, Kesnet. Not only the dart, but the aftershock. They hear the TP coming in. Everything falls apart for Leviatán. I'm surprised to see them fall into that, given the dangers of the saved weapon and the composition that they're playing. I mean, they're playing mirror comps. That's a strat that everybody who's running this breach Omen can do.
Well, and especially Kesnet and the pace with which he likes to play. A bit surprising. You wonder if they'll fall for that again. Either way, KRU on the board here.
Wow.
Deep bolt. He stuck it!
Mazzino definitely trying to find a way in this. Kesnet's still there. Challenging, but they both traded. They don't have smokes though. Melser is up. They have that reach roll.
Gonna invest 100 here too.
Oh, Kesnet whipped all his
cover,
knives.
60 HP, and he got stuck. He was caught.
All of his knives. And King, too, was completely stunned up by the breach ult. They're in a post-plant position right now, and Melzer will have smoke, but you're looking at Pearl all over again right now. This spam is going to be ridiculous.
The spam, the utility that'll be soaring through the skies here in just a moment. Nosper still has 2 shock darts to work with, and it may not even be a factor when all is said and done. Leviatán gets a 4.
The confidence it takes for them to call that dash into garage is ridiculous. Out of Taco. And the fact that it converts into a kill too and converts into a free sight. Because again, that was the KJ. Normally you're trying to play off the turret contact there, but that turret contact is not a factor if you can completely nullify the angle that you're playing off of. 2 ridiculous rounds back to back. Set plays and anti-strats called by both sides, and they do reap dividends.
Back to aggression for KRU towards A. They're sending 4, 2 towards long, 2 down short. And they do have 2 Guardians to their name here.
Hasn't it got that 4K on the light buy round in the prior? Reminder that this guy against Taco.
One enemy remaining.
This feels like Taco's going to have him one of those games.
Yeah, I think that battle between the two is really important as Nags gets flashed and spammed. Because during the offseason, Kesnet was on Leviatán. He was playing for a spot on this team. In the offseason, they played a number of events, and they were swapping between Taco starting, between Kesnet starting.
Player standing.
And trying to figure out which one is actually going to have a spot on the roster. And Taco won out, maybe because of experience with the team, but also just comfortability with the team too. Kesnet's playing in a completely different system, despite the same coach. And I think he took that personally. But unfortunately, it's not going to show up in the standings. Maybe it'll show up at some point in this game. We already had that nasty 4K from him. But it also might lead to some unforced errors too. Like we maybe saw in that 5th round when the TP went in, when the dash went into the garage, where he overstayed his welcome, missed all of his knives, and had nobody to trade him.
So we take a quick check-in on those 2 duelists that you were just talking about. Taco started off the map 8-3. Right, he's feeling it. He's doing just fine. Meanwhile, Kesnet, and I'm only going to say this because of the 4K he had that round, he's 4-5 right now.
Yep.
I mean, it's been nothing for every round other than that one. So it's early, but
sure. I would say KRU has. I mean, in the rounds that Leviatán has won, it's been very clean. Those lost. We had 2 ecos so far. The pistol was. They found a free sight, and then the anti in the 5th round. And now they have a cycle of ults coming online right now. The KJ ult's online for Shy. They've got King 1 off of his. And it's possible they could slam into this A site. Wonder if they're scared of falling into the same trap. It happened last time, but this time Kesnet's not there to follow up on it.
But with that said, I'm curious to see what protocols they have in place to make sure that doesn't happen again. Right? Because that's the same look so far. It was just the fault line that Kesnet was able to get past into that cubby.
It's nice that they don't show any differences right there because while it's not popping up, you can't be scared of something that's not going to come. So you have to see if they... Oh, high-low here. Hold on. Melzer with the peek with Klaus.
Klaus down low. The first to go down.
Melzer not finding a kill there while they were so peaked. That angle's actually tough because the high angle is blocked, so you're really looking at feet.
Bit of rotation off from Leviatán. Numbers still even here. The op in the hands of Kesnet, which I believe is the first time we've had this. And that is not what you were looking for.
A head-to-head battle starting up, and Taco is absolutely dominating in these first 7 rounds. That's 2-0 for him against Kesnet. And if there's any hope for KRU in this game, you were looking at Kesnet. He's been the star for this team.
Good.
Still even here.
Nags ultimately falling.
Player standing.
Ashedi not close behind. And Melzer the trio to clean up the round. So Leviatán up big here. Money still, I mean, rolling. They've got plenty of it. And I think the other thing worth mentioning here is we think about how the snowball is starting to lean heavier and heavier towards Leviatán, and oppressing KRU is the fact that they kept the lockdown. They still have King's Rolling Thunder too.
Yep.
So it's only going to get worse.
And it's because they actually couldn't get the space down short because of that high-low setup that crew used to interrupt them. But it almost might be their downfall in this first half. Because those are big tools in the next gun rounds. Nico here, walk down mid. You're kind of going through it right now, crew. Different options looking for him. And the redrone goes right back to clear the space that you just heard the spam from. Leviatán playing cautiously. And so far what we've seen, okay, hold on, crew going again back down mid. This could catch them off guard. They're watching it, but do they really expect 4 players here? And now that alarm bot falls, they have room to pivot. They're gonna engage in grass.
Shy getting 2 openers. There's plenty more to come here. Kesmet once again left alone. Oh, there you go. He got one back on Taco.
But I mean, he lost all of his team in grass.
Yeah.
Still decent trades on the eco. Nice one way to keep him out. No more chances here for Kez. And they can hear him stomping all the while. 7-1 for Leviatán, and I have to say, this feels much different than the start that we had in those 2 upset losses. Incredibly clean all the way through. Their protocols, their hits, working very nice. And Shy, who was a star in those first couple of wins that Leviatán got, also coming alive there with some clean shots.
7-4 for the Killjoy on Leviatán. 7-1 lead for the attacking side. And they still have those 2 key ultimates that they could pop at any given moment to secure a round, to overwhelm the defense.
Staying in the same spread default, not going for A control. Forcing the players on the defense back off of Garage. And look at this from Melzer. Kesnet, I mean, that's really aggressive just to break a turret, and he takes a chunk of damage.
I mean, 2 really aggressive moves we've seen. Kesnet, but then also Melzer by himself taking some of the space. And I thought I saw some pings on the minimap early on. They may be aware of what's going on here.
This gives Melzer an advantage in these fights while they're dodging.
But he never swings, just waits.
He only tagged Taco there. And the drone to clear him. I mean, it's just perfect from Leviatán right now. Still room to pivot all around.
Spike being handed over and Melzer having to give some of the space back that he had just garnered.
Remember the difference on short before. There was a denial of the space, denial of the spot where you want to put that KJ ult down. I wonder here though, breach ult is available. You're threatening both. And maybe you can use that KJ ult in lockdown or in post plant.
Melzer's ahead of this. Oh, but he was flashed. They knew he was nearsighted. He was dead.
30 seconds left.
Taco eventually going down there. They've hung on to the 2 ults. One of them now being used, but the spike planted.
Holds the space. Nags has his own KJ ult. That's why you see the breach running away right now. But they look like they want to push if they go for it. There's not even going to be any time for this, though. That lockdown buys so much, keeps them so far out of spawn. And that cycle dangerous right now. Leviatán is honestly taking way more liberties than I thought they would with the ults. They got the sight before even expending either one of them. So again, they're carrying him forward, and it just continues to be a threat. This is very, very nice play here.
They look exceptionally clean. And it does not look like Crew have really found anything really other than that early round where Kesnet tucked down A long.
Can't lose these guns. Come away with 2 of them. Still be able to force up. They've got max loss bonus at this point. 5 rounds in a row for Leviatán.
It's the second timeout on the side of Crew coming through. So they're going to be done. They're going to be flying blind, so to speak, for the rest of the map.
It's a brutal start. It is a brutal start to what may be the end of Crew season. We keep speaking about how they have chances. There's a moonshot to get back into contention, but I think the players know the reality of the situation. They have Sentinels and Cloud9 to face too. Sentinels is definitely doable for the team. Cloud9 Maybe in the last game, maybe it'll all be clinched up at that point. They have a chance, but I mean, they need to win all 3 of those. And with a start like this, you're leaning back and thinking, what are we playing for? What are we playing for?
Still encouraging to see their coach animated, communicating, talking through things. Certainly not wearing the look of defeat, at least yet. But they still find themselves down 7 rounds in this first half. And yeah, it's Leviatán on the attacking side. And yes, this map can lean a little attack side, but not to this degree.
And that attempt against Loud, KRU did have a rough start on the last map with Split. Very similar to the scoreline, and they made it close. So it's not like we haven't seen them show some resilience. I think the problem here is just Leviatán are just looking way too clean. It's not just a matter of the players hitting shots, it's all the strats, the game plan is working. And I think right again, you're getting towards these final rounds, I think King is gonna eventually give up. No, they're still just going for the same execute, not even worried about Breach ulting or KJ ulting. But on the other side, KRU, 5v5 retake, they have to put it down this time. We don't have a counter.
Spike planted.
To break into the position that it is. So looking like an ult cancel, a Breach ult to bring it back in.
Taco's gonna give up his life.
He didn't ult cancel, actually.
Yeah, he gave up his...
Taco's alone.
Yeah, but Mazzino's on that flank. Now they have the Rolling Thunder. There's gonna be chaos on the site because that hit literally everyone. Achilles already dead. Now Mazzino's showing up at just the right time. It's perfect. Wow. It's gorgeous.
And the chaos of the situation obscures the ult from Mazzino too, and the intention of it. A lot of times you're not even considering where this can go, but what a combination. The Breach ult with his flank is beautiful. He TP'd in their own spawn in a place that was very safe.
And also unexpected, like you were saying. When you're caught in a situation like that, in a lockdown, you're not ulting behind them.
Oh yeah.
You're ulting to safety.
9-1. Again, a match that you look at this on paper at the beginning of the season, you think, okay, this should be a classic LATAM rivalry. But the situation unfolding before ourselves right now is the Kings of LATAM asserting their dominance after last year's hostile takeover previous to Copenhagen. And there's history between these two teams. It's been close in these battles before. They've played the most grand finals out of probably any region against each other. And it has not been favorable to Leviatán up until that last win to allow them to get to Copenhagen. Formerly known as Australs, prior to Onur joining the team. And that history not speaking for the match right now.
No, deafening silence there. Full site take from Lev. Everyone on site. Shy, who's taking a bit of that space down long to Tuck, and they still don't know he's there. King was actually the one who got the kill on the Meltzer, so it may not matter. Oh, he ended up getting cleared out by Achilles' utility. But another clean round for Lev.
I can't believe. In the scenario that we actually saw on Pistol, the very first round of this game, we saw KRU flanking that C post plant. And it was much, much closer of a receive from Leviatán. Nasri was down bottom C. This time, they're stuck in cubby, they're on site, and they're still handling that very easily. Because there's just not enough pressure coming through spawn, not enough pressure coming through garage, enough for them to have to worry about them and instead lose their angle holding down long.
Get out of my way!
Isn't it back on up? Final round of the half. Can he find value? It's 3-1 against Taco right now. Or for Taco right now.
He's tucked down C long. Oof. Taco not able to connect with the blades.
Blocking sight.
They still have options here in this setup. I mean, they could go C. They could go back.
Yeah, it's actually so nice. Out of the Leviatán side, they use both of their renewable utility there, the Breach fault line and the Sova Recon, to go in and feint a little bit of pressure at B, see if you can get a pick, and then maybe you can pivot and actually hit the site. But they also baited out the drone, some of the more permanent utility, out of KRU to re-clear the site.
I mean, even this. They know he's there.
That was close.
Yes, it was.
This is also looking to be a little bit of a feint. Well, the two players of Leviatán still trying to fake over towards C. This is a really nice play. Showing on the timing at A, and this could look like a pivot right now, and it is pulling players away.
You just
Can't get staying though.
Yeah, but the spike is A. I mean, they've drawn out the Rolling Thunder, so they're getting what they want out of Crew.
Kesnet is staying though. They completely understand the situation right now, but not scoped. Nosworth now gonna take the fight, and he doesn't realize they're behind him already.
That's going to be the cue as he hears the spike go down, understanding he's been surrounded. Are they going to get him out with the ult? No, Nosworth's... Yeah, Kesnet's done. They still managed to get the spike down. Just 3 left on the side of Crew. This ball just doesn't really feel like a fair fight right now. I mean, what is happening?
Yeah, they're getting ripped apart.
A flawless round from Leviatán.
And these stomps, a lot of times you see just like ridiculous performances out of individual players to keep the score as tight as it is. Like, for example, in that Loud EG game that ended up 13-0.
One enemy.
But I mean, yeah, I'm seeing nice shots from Leviatán, but everything's just working. They're just walking on the site, and Crew's just rolling over.
Oh, well, after that half, we're actually going to throw it down to Riot, who's standing by with the CEO and founder of Leviatán, who's got nothing but smiles right now, I'm sure.
The CEO and founder, that's fair. And fair, I mean, super dominant to start us off, but tell us a little bit, where are you coming from? Because you were not here in LA, so.
No, I'm from Argentina. I'm so happy to be here in LA with all these people here and cheering for Leviatán. Thank you. We love you.
And, you know, the energy is pretty good for Lev, but how are you feeling about the Riot Games Arena? It is the first time they're here, right?
Yes, my first time. It's amazing to be here. Thank you, Riot, for this. And I'm so happy to be here. I will stay here until we're playing, so I hope to be a long time here.
It's great to see Lev all the way at the top, everybody talking about them. So last time that these two teams faced each other, it was all the way back in Argentina to make it to Copenhagen. It was that grand final. What has changed for the org since then, and even for the team?
No, a lot. Playing a tier 1 league is just a lot of challenges, but we are happy to be here and we think that we can make it better. So we are growing up a lot, and Leviatán will make a lot of shows here in Los Angeles.
And now that you just got here, now that you're supporting Lev as well from the arena, what do you bring? I mean, you bring a lot of energy. We can definitely always hear you screaming and supporting the team, but also kind of where are you bringing to bring that LATAM feel to the guys?
Yeah, of course, I bring a lot of t-shirts. All the people here have some t-shirts from Leviatán, so we will bring some more, so be here. Now, I bring the support from the players. I'm here for them. We are a family, so I'm happy to be here to see each other and have fun.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that they're doing right now. Super dominant so far. We got to see how it ends up as we send it back to the guys at the cast.
Thank you so much, Dan. Again, you hear the crowd behind him. Dude's got jerseys. I mean, I want one. See if we can get one.
He's going row to row, giving out jerseys.
He just needs to work his way over to this side of the arena. But I want to kind of set sight back towards Leviatán and kind of the bigger picture here, right?
Okay.
Because remember, coming into this series, they come in off of two
big losses.
surprising and big losses. You're absolutely right. So for them to come into this series, yes, against what is technically an inferior opponent, but to look as clean as they do is very promising for the future.
Absolutely. I think the conversation that Golden Boy was having on the desk about fatigue was kind of interesting with Mel and Mimi as well. Just because Leviatán is known as this team that grinds, and looks like the clock is paused, so I might have a chance to really flesh this out too. No, we're back into it. Nice little caster curse. I like it. It's interesting because I think that's part of the reason why a lot of people were putting on Leviatán for losing that edge that they had. They're just grinding so hard. Obviously, things are eventually going to fall off. You start to get burnt out. But when you lose 2 in a row, not only does it wake you up, but it gives you that break a little bit. You're the last 2 weeks, you can kind of put that back out of your memory and redouble your efforts, like Onur said.
And I think we had this conversation last time we talked about Leviatán. I think one of the many keys to some of their struggles was the fact that Taco just looked and felt uncomfortable. He was very vocal about it on Twitter. He was just very honest about the fact that he still wasn't really getting in his routine. He's having an excellent map so far, too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, most comfortable I've seen him all season. He's been a beast. He's been such a threat. On this pistol round, though, Nags just cleared mid. That's the cue for them to walk over and start hitting this A site. They're going to completely go dry here. I like this approach. But look from Leviatan's perspective, they're playing really passive positions as well.
Right here.
Nazar hanging on to his recon and his shock darts. And there's not. Oof.
And that molly actually plays from Nags, gone early. So it's unfortunate, but no chance at actually playing that post plant that he wanted to. So we're looking at a fault line and a flash here.
Remember, Nazar just used his dart too.
How is he out?
I mean, he's just so ahead of everything. You talk about being comfortable. That's as comfortable as it gets. The pistol round for Leviatán surely means the map is over.
Oh, for sure. That is ridiculous. How is Taco out there? Might end up being our second most dominant map win here in Americas. Taco just dashes out. Wow, the flash and the stun come out from Dark to delay the people on spawn. So Taco's by himself in that instance. And I don't know. One of the things that KRU has been relying a lot on some of these on some of these series to make him close is they constantly were going back to some of their really most played maps, Ascent, some of the that stuff, but that's not even the pool here.
Target out.
Maybe a different result on split, but for now, just dominance from Leviatán. It doesn't show any signs of slowing down. Yeah, there's a bit of a force from KRU, but this is as much of a prayer as you can possibly have.
I mean, getting the spike down on B, but look, Leviatan's already countering the spam play. Has to be Nags here to go for a reflank on this.
I like this from Klaus, though. Yeah, the positioning's excellent. 2 is all he gets, though.
Oh, no, and Nags' reflank doesn't even work?
Instantly traded right back.
But they have a link control right now, so now I'm looking at Shy to come into this and cause problems.
He's just waiting on the other side of the smoke. That flash.
What?
Good. The turn from Elson.
They can't look at the spike right now. They get half.
Utility, perhaps?
Oh,
no.
Dangerous games being played. But Leviatán, you see the passiveness that we saw on the pistol extended there on the B site because it's just too spread as they go for that A hit. Or A push, I should say. And KRU gets a free sight. And Klaus does work in mid to contain the flank.
The force pays off. KRU get to 2. They have 3 rifles this round. While Leviatán just choosing to stick with the pistols. And you have such a long runway. I mean, you can afford to give up a couple of rounds here.
Yeah, Leviatán doesn't care at all, but for KRU, I mean, they need to get as many rounds as possible. I'm not even sure if they're holding on to hope about playoffs, but map differential, round differential is so important. So any extra economy they can get is crucial. And that dart actually is bad.
No way.
Oh, no.
No way.
Hello?
Oh, he's still alive!
Last player standing.
Yeah, did you see him on the cams?
Yeah. I can't believe that almost happened, but Shy gets into an interesting position.
All he has is a classic. And with no real knowledge of what's around them. Oh, they still don't clear him? They haven't cleared him.
Surprised he took that first shot. I would have gone, I don't know.
A little bit more patient, yeah. A bit more exploratory in your measures.
Either way, I mean, KRU took a lot of damage there. I was talking about making it as clean as possible so they can maybe get into the gun round. The only chances KRU have is in tie breaks. So you have to have good round differential. And they still have to win this series, by the way, so I don't know even what I'm getting way ahead of myself. I'm trying to think about what they're thinking about. Or if they're just empty. Because for me, I mean, it would be. Getting stomped this hard.
Yeah. I don't know that I'd blame you. Kaznet's still pacey, still playing around. The paranoia is still dashing his way forward. Out onto the side is Klaus.
Another
Gets
tag?
one and a tag on the second. You're absolutely right. That was close.
Oh, it was close. And they get the sight. not many tools here. They got Aftershock Stun and maybe the Hunter's Fury, but here it comes. They're actually sending it here.
Is it dry?
Yeah, no recon was shot. And he gets nothing out of it.
Oh, that is unfortunate timing.
If I'm Leviatán, I'm stacking those ults over and over. Like, I'm waiting until I have 4 ults to be able to just go for a crazy retake and just close the game.
Yeah, because you're just one round away. You're absolutely right. But they choose to invest some of the tools that they have.
2.3K here for Nags, so he's perfectly comfortable to try to chase a little bit.
LEV not nearly as fortunate here. But they managed to keep the 3 rifles that they had, and both King and Taco take no damage, so they're not going to have to buy up armor next round.
And it's a timeout. Wow. I mean, this is classic Onur, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. All right, y'all quit messing around. Cut this out. Take us to split.
He's getting the chunk out. Oh, actually, not as animated as I thought he was going to be. I mean, it is a situation where you're just perfectly happy, but... I would be definitely discussing about the tools you have to make this happen. I think one of the things in the past, when they were Australs, obviously it's been a major change, major shift in the rosters for Leviatán. But it was a bit of a curse for them playing up against KRU, especially in important matches. This one not so much. But they constantly struggled and failed to make it towards those global events in 2021 because of their battle against KRU and their struggles against them. And it was in moments like these. I mean, they constantly threw really good halves. They constantly were, I mean, they've even gotten almost reverse sweeped against KRU in the past too. So those types of things creep back up in the players that still remain on this team. Just a little bit. Not right now, though.
You sounded real ominous there.
Painting a picture that probably doesn't exist.
Oh, boy. There's not a lot of... Oh, Taco from down long. I was going to say, it didn't seem like there was a ton of help, but there was just enough to keep him covered.
And that was one of the rifles, too, in the hands of Mizzino. That's why he's going for a really aggressive position.
Just one, though? Even then, Shy still
he just picked it up.
Pick one up, yeah. So I like the idea. I like the play from Machete, but you just need to do a little bit more. 3v3 here. Oh. And it's going wonderfully.
Excuse me.
10 HP. And the shotgun in his lap. That's what cleans it up. 13-4 in favor of Leviatán. What a stomp!
How is that guy stunned up? How will this King do that? El Rey in the server. Once again, 13-4 is, I mean, just domination. Across the board from the beginning of that game until the end, it felt in full control for Leviatán. It's a good sign for them. Not only to have obviously the first map in this series, but looking forward, I mean, a lot of doubt was placed on this team after so much hype around them because of how structured they were, because of how they were talked about in scrims. A lot of teams end up being able to convert that. And with those 2 losses, everybody was like, actually, they're not as good as we thought.
Yeah,
they were maybe overhyped.
Yeah, I remember the first time I was shown the light of Leviatán. It was actually from Chet, who goes, dude, these guys are real.
Yep.
People, they're going to put people on notice. And then, yeah, you're right. They lose the 2 series that they do, and they go, well, I mean, maybe they're not as invincible as we thought, but this felt like a return to form in a massive way. They're up 1-0 in this series. Yeah, they're going to split next, but it may be a bit of the same. We'll be right back.
Spike down B.
Stop me, 'cause I'm having a good time, having a good time. Red Bull gives you wings.